All right, live. So welcome to the high-res beast mode tasting. We have a very special program this time. This time, not only are we doing live tasting with three Sixpoint brewers, myself and Sean and Fabian here, all for this tasting. But as you can see, we have special guest stars for everyone else who's here on the tasting this time. We have our beast. So, which you've already seen now in my lower left, maybe your lower right, but this is Chinook, and also with us today are Barley and Rocky, and they will be making an appearance shortly. But I would actually like to go through, starting on the bottom, going left and right, if everyone make introductions themselves and their beat. Starting with Brent.
Oh. This is Phoebe. I just woke her up, so she's a little bedhead. But I'm Brent from Orlando, Florida, and yeah. So hi, Phoebes.
So one of the things that everyone at home should know, that Brent is a very understated man, but he has one of the coolest craft beer bars in Florida. And when we first started selling our beer down there, I met him when you were at his previous location. We kind of stumbled upon this place, really unexpected place in Orlando. Him and a couple of other people there, one of which was on a previous tasting of ours, have kind of built the Florida craft beer scene. You know, a small community of people, and it's cool. The good vibes coming out of this.
Done. Yeah, we're turning 10 this year. So the bar. Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Right on, man. And then moving right along here, we have, and I think our connection is through. Well, the main connector here is Matt, but let's hear about how we all came about and the connectivity. And who is that beast that you have there in your hand, man? That is a dapper dog.
Oh, you're talking to me. Sorry, I didn't get you. This is Amanda. I'm Gil. I'm I guess Craft Beer Nation is where we all get connected and we talk to Shane a couple times already. So that's fun. Yeah. Amanda's 13 years old, and she is not very happy right now. She wants to go to bed.
All right.
Yeah. I'm one of the co-founders of Craft Beer Nation. It's a community we have on Google+, YouTube, and we also have 3 YouTube shows that we do every week. So we drink a lot of beer and enjoy Sixpoint. So it's awesome to be participating in this. I'm originally from Brazil, so if you can't understand everything I say, you just ask me to.
No problem. We were lucky enough to spend some time in Brazil and see the kind of craft beer scene there, which when we were there, it felt kind of like where America was about, I don't know, maybe about 15 years ago with craft beer, where you could definitely tell it's starting, but it's very early, and so it's going to be really fun to see what it looks like 20 years from now. You know?
Yeah, comparing to what is considered craft beer here, because there's a different understanding out there. But if you would say on the same as here, it's probably a little under 1% yet. A lot to do with economical powers, craft beer, you know, be able to buy it and everything. But it's thriving. Fortunately, there's some big business trying to buy smaller ones, but
yeah, we know what that's like, right?
yeah.
And then let's go over to Jamie and your beast, who I don't know if it's in sight, but
they're over on the couch. I'm sure I can entice them over here in a couple seconds. Yeah, here they come.
Here come the tree.
Yeah, that gets them up here. Yeah, it says Oliver up there, but this is actually Prudence. This is my newest adoptee here. They don't super get along yet, but they get along to the point where they were just napping on the couch together, so that works. This is Oliver here.
It all starts with being bed buddies and goes from there.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, when he falls asleep, she goes and falls him over and falls asleep on him, so ain't the worst thing.
Yep, we know the deal.
And
But
now,
where did you pick up these beasts? Are these shelter beasts? Or?
yeah, they're both shelter animals, and she still has that shelter mentality where she will just eat up every drop of food he leaves behind, so.
Deprivation anxiety.
Yeah.
Yep. Seen it before, man. And also separation anxiety sometimes you see with shelter animals, like if they're so used to not having affection, and if you give them a lot of affection and then you leave them alone, like if you go to work or even sometimes if you leave the room for a couple hours, sometimes they panic. And what's really interesting is you learn that these animals have like pretty complex psychologies.
Yeah, she's the newer one, and she'll follow me all around the house, but she'll still be spooked if I try to pick her up. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm Jamie. I manage a liquor store down in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. We sell a ton of beer. I run a beer of the month club there with about 59 guys in it. It's a good time.
Right on. And of course, Matt. The dude with the highest resolution webcam ever.
ever.
It's so clear that I can see the pores on your face.
I know. Well, I tell you what though, this webcam is really clear, but it adds 80 pounds. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm only 175 pounds, but no, I'm Matt Miller. I'm another co-founder with Gil of Craft Beer Nation, and we do online YouTube channel stuff, and we have a blog and all that kind of fun stuff. But basically, it's just an excuse to add some legitimacy to our beer drinking habits. So that's really what we are. My beast is not in the house. My beast is on a vacation. We have a really good friend who watches after our animals. This is I've put her picture up though. This is Simone. This is our pointer coonhound something, says the vet, and she is my dog. My wife decided to adopt her, and then she immediately became my girlfriend. And if I'm in the house, she is within 3 feet of me. She will not leave my side. So she's my girl, and yeah, so she's a shelter dog. All of our dogs have been shelter dogs over the years, and we love it. So glad to be here, glad to be a part of it, and look forward to drinking. We've taken a little while to get going here. I'm almost done with the beast. I'm looking forward to moving on to the high res.
Okay, well, we're almost done too. I'm just going to go over to Victoria now, and I think I see a beast in the background there. Yep.
Yep, that's Lynx. That's my son's cat. He's a rescue off the street, but Cody is my beast of record. I don't know if I can get a pic. He's not wanting to really join the fun, but he's down here next to me. There he is.
There.
And we just rescued him right after New Year's from the shelter. So he was also a stray, and some friends of my son's found him, and we adopted him because he's a senior and he's an old boy, but he's pretty chill.
So
we're still getting to know each other.
One of the things that notice, for those of you who have adopted shelter beasts over the years, there's this propensity for people to go to the shelter and pick the youngest, cutest, most adorable kitten or puppy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine because all these shelter animals are without homes. That's why they're in a shelter. But the ones that are hardest to find homes are the elderly animals, the ones that may have a medical condition, the ones that might be missing an eye, missing a limb, may have some type of debilitating disease that could be expensive or whatever. And no one wants to, well, I wouldn't say no one, but a lot of people don't want to take on that additional burden.
Right.
A lot of times those are the animals that need the most care and compassion.
Yep, that's kind of why we went and got him out of the pound. We had another shelter dog that we had for 15 years, and we lost him a couple years ago. So he kind of reminded us of him, and we just couldn't leave him in the shelter, so he came home with us.
Cool. So we've made the rounds here. Like I said, Chinook is right here. You can kind of see a little bit of his big snout right there. Rocky is up. He's up right now hanging out. And Barley was acting a little temperamental, so we're going to let her come in later after we had a couple beers. But why don't we go ahead and start off with the Yeast mode. Hopefully everyone's got a nice, yeah, there you go. Everyone show us your beast. And we're going to, a couple samples here. Chinook, you can have a little, oh, there you go, sniff. And
right off the bat, I noticed this has got a little more of a hop bite to it than your typical porter. That is interesting and lovely.
you never would have expected that from Sixpoint, you know? It's just
Such a shock. Yeah.
Atypical and a little bit out of character for us, you know?
Yeah. You guys dry hop the water fountain, right?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing to do is, as long as we have the benefit here of Sean and Bobby with me, is just kind of give you our approach on what beast mode was all about. Because I think a lot of customers are confused in the same way that Matt just described. The most common feedback we've heard is it's not a porter. And we say, why? And they say, well, it's not syrupy and malty, and it's not dark enough, right? So, I mean, there's really no right or wrong answer to that, but what I do is I challenge people who believe they know style guidelines for beers. Not that they matter, but I think we can all agree that porter comes from the UK. American porter clearly doesn't come from the UK, but the original style was invented there, and it split off into so many different derivatives, Baltic porters and various incarnations of Scandinavian porters, and now we have coffee porters, et cetera, et cetera. But the original porters, they are not pitch black beers. They're not opaque. You could see through them, and a lot of times they had a very deep red or deep brown color. And just as recently as a year ago, we were over in the UK drinking cask beers for this cask project we were working on, which we do continuously now. What we discovered and what we found out is that even to this day, porter is not, I think, what a lot of Americans think it is. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make a beer that has that, the sort of the lightness of the body and the feel and the drinkability. Like these original porters, you were meant to be able to really consume about 10 of them. You know, you go down to a pub and you drink cask porter. It's supposed to be this really quenching, delicious beverage that you can have many of. And we noticed that a lot of the porters that were on available weren't cut in that vein at all. They were very syrupy. So we wanted to make a beer that it has all of the roastiness of like a good deep brown ale, has that little bit of that charcoal burnt flavor of a porter, but it has the great hop aroma and flavor of like a delicious pale or an IPA. And that's what we came up for beast mode. That was sort of the intent behind it. And also the key is when you smell it, it's supposed to be like dare I use the metaphor, when you have like that fresh slice of toast in the morning, you know, it's just like that bready, toasty, cooked, nice great slice of bread toasted, and then, you know, it's got to have some hop bite to it. We always feel that hops, they can add a juicy like perfume to a beer, but they also can just cleanse the palate, and you know, it gets you ready for the next sip. So I want to actually go over to Matt. Kind of started. What are your thoughts on this beer? Forgetting style guidelines, forgetting all of that, the beverage.
Yeah, yeah. If you ignore the style guidelines, which, like you said, really are guidelines, not rules, it does. It is a lighter bodied, lighter on the tongue beer, and it's actually I actually get a little wild on the back of the tongue. It's not a funk. It's just an interesting tang back there, and it's got to be a combination of the malt blend and the hops there, but it's enjoyable for me. And I wouldn't call it thirst quenching, but I would call it pleasant. It's not cloying. It's not astringent. It's just hoppy and bitter and pleasant.
Right on. Brent, what are your thoughts?
I dig it. I mean, for 6.4%, that's I didn't know how strong it was. I mean, I could definitely drink a few of these. It goes down real easy. You know, as you can see, my glass is almost gone. But I really like what you said about the style guidelines and stuff, because people cling to those things too much. You know what I mean? Especially in America. That's what I love, like going to Europe and you talking to, especially in Belgium, and you know, those guys. They're like, "This is my beer. I don't care if it is what you think it is." You know what I mean? But
we found that customers and people in the beer industry in general are a unique group of people because they always want to taxonomize everything.
Yeah.
So, like, if you were to go buy a car, for instance, right? Generally, if it looks good and it has the features that you like and it's the right price, you won't care whether it's like someone calls it a sedan or a coupe or an SUV or a state.
Right.
As long as it's what you're looking for, you'll get it, you know? But there's something about with beer that people are like, you can give them a delicious beer, and if you called it a pale ale, but it was really an IPA, or if you called it an IPA and it really was a pale.
Session IPA, right?
Yeah, they might actually change their entire opinion about the beer based completely upon the classification of the style.
Yeah.
Which is really odd. We've been working hard for 10 years to try to upend that, and we feel like we're making some progress, and we hope that in the future people continue to enjoy beers for what they are.
Yeah.
So, in that mind, Gil, I'd like to hear your thoughts about this beer.
To be totally honest with you, I wouldn't call it porter, but not that it matter. I'll tell you the truth. I'm one of those people that are really sad that I don't know if I agree with the feedback you got from marketing. I used to be a big fan of not having names of the brewery. I love that you in the past you didn't have the, because it opens so much for me when I try your beers to try to get that without a style. But besides that, it's a confusing beer for me in a good way, though. I do get somewhat floral, citrusy on the beginning, but then you get that underline of kind of a roasted caramels and everything. It's a very light body. I think it's the kind of beer that if you don't be careful, you could drink probably 4 or 5 and not notice that you're drinking that much. And the one thing that I like it a lot is that roastness, that's caramel roasted. I don't know. It lingers on the top of your mouth, and that really is nice because it's kind of like food when you keep going for the next spoon because there's half of that taste that stay there. I like it. I like a lot, and again, maybe I'm too attached to guidelines and I'm trying to get away from that. But the first impression was like, oh wait, that's not a porter. But then you go past that, to me, it's like I like the nice undertones. There's a lot of layers to that beer that is, you can, from the hoppiness to the citrusness to the caramel to the roastness. I think there's a lot of complexity, and I think that's makes it a very good, very solid beer for me.
And so it's interesting to hear this consistent feedback, but going over to Jamie, I would like to change it up a bit. What do you think, if we were to make this beer again, we want to do, what do you think we could do to actually improve the beer?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So my question to you is, what do you think we could actually do to improve the beer if we were to make this beer again? Your opinion.
To be honest, I love the beer. I think the porter, like when I sell it to customers, they saw the name and they're like, oh, porter, and I was like, don't go into it thinking of as porter. This is, I would have to describe it as, almost a brown ale, has some porter qualities. It's hoppy and bitter too, dry on the finish. I think it's really nice as it is. It has all those nice roasty characters. It's not acrid or anything like that. You talking about the toast in the morning? My grandmother used to make a pan of bacon every morning, and then toast your toast in that. I get a little smoke on the nose. It kind of reminds me of that bread toasted in bacon fat. I mean, I think the drinkability is there with the body. If maybe it was a bigger beer, maybe just increase the body, maybe make it a little silkier.
This is all good feedback. I'll tell you what, we'll beast it up next year, and then what we need to do is we need to have a separate tasting panel with the beast.
Well, I'm not saying increase the alcohol. I like where it is, but maybe if you wanted to make something bigger,
How scientific would it be if you had two different beast modes? You put them in a bowl, and then you we let Chinook decide what. Do you think that would be a scientifically valid experiment?
That'd be fair enough.
He's pretty undiscriminatory when it comes to beer. If it smells like hops, he goes for it. I'm just kidding. I would never do that. So, by the way, Chinook is in full lounge mode. He's laying on our feet right now. He gets a little exhausted being on camera. So, Victoria, I'd like to hear your thoughts about beast mode.
I like it. I didn't bother paying attention to the porter part of it. I knew it was a porter. To me, it's almost like a little bit lighter black IPA with the hops and the roastiness, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of one of my favorite local black IPAs here in Arizona. So I like it. I think it's great. If you're going to do anything else to it, I would make it a little bit roastier and a little bit hoppier.
Damn, you want us to amp it up even more.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, you know what? We are always tweaking things, and the best thing about this season, when you tweak the core beers, which we constantly do, even if when I say incrementally, I mean like, just for example, like let's say the crisp had 246 pounds of hops in it. The next recipe we might put 247 pounds. So that's a change, but it's such a small change that virtually no one would ever detect it. But the point is, if you do that every time you brew it, over the period of 3 years, those incremental changes can add up to big differences. When you do these seasonal beers like this, where you make them once a year, the changes are much more pronounced. But the problem is because it's not in continuous production, you don't have a fresh, contiguous sample to taste it against. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But we'll definitely be making some improvements to it next year. We actually already had our internal panel talk about it. I'm going to go ahead and get the high res now, and while I do that, I'm going to let these guys kind of talk about the beast mode for a bit.
Okay. So I think there's one thing about this beer that no one's really quite been picking up on. As another layer is the yeast. We used an English style yeast, and we were getting. You can pick up it's hidden in there, but you're able to pick up some of the esters and some of the fruitiness from the English yeast that we used. I mean, it's getting kind of overpowered by some of that toasted like caramel and chocolate and some of the citrusy hops, but it's a layer that's in there that I don't think a lot of people quite picked up.
You can definitely pick it up a little bit. It does get a little fruity after you get past all the roastiness, but those, aromas and flavors are so big that that's the first thing you notice and kind of sticks with you. Especially, I feel like the finish on this is very long, and a lot of those flavors stick to your gums in a really nice way. But you still have to look for the some of that, those fruity English esters.
It lingers. The taste just stays there right for a while. It's same for me.
Special delivery. Barley. And we got a little lamb.
Those are the best dog's name ever.
I could never get away with naming dogs after beer components in my house.
Well, Barley, as you heard from Barley's entree into the movie here, she always has to make her stage presence known. So whenever she enters the scene, she likes to let everyone know what's happening. So I got to tell you a great story about Barley, so you can sort of sympathize with her personality. Barley I've had many different shelter dogs over the years, and I actually rescued a cat too, actually 4 cats. Barley was the most severe victim of abuse that I've ever rescued, to the point where she was considered a lost cause. So basically, Barley was having difficulty finding a home because she had been so damaged by abuse that they couldn't find a home for her because she would attack all of the people who basically came to adopt her. She was so paranoid of humans that it was just really hard to have any type of connection with her. And so when I first got her, she had a lot of damage to her skull, on the top of her head, and then she had a laceration that goes from her ear to the side of her mouth. That's still, there's a scar there. So as most people like to do, they like to pet dogs on the top of their heads. And that's where Barley was beaten really bad. So you couldn't really touch her head, and to this day, if you try to grab her head, she's freaked out about it, usually. So you have to build up a lot of trust with her before you can have a relationship, so to speak. So what's been really cool over the years is basically rehabilitating her, and she's here right now. I can give you a little view. So that's Barley. She's a very curious animal, and she still has, if you see in that eyes like that, she still has that look of like just kind of scared and doesn't really know what's going to happen. And the thing is, we don't really know what happened to her. We can only speculate. But I can tell you this: she's very happy to have a new home, and she's very happy to be out of that situation, whatever the hell she was involved in. She has a massive upgrade. So, on that note, I did happen to score some of these. Boom, boom, boom. So I think we should get into the high res now.
Yeah, Shane, you need to catch up to us. A few of us have had high res in a glass for a few minutes now. So
A few of us have a second one already. Oh no, it's my English gets better though.
It does. My comprehension gets better, I guess, perhaps.
And Rocky's ready for the high res. Let's do the high res. All right. High res is in the house. Oh yes.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. So we did like a little preamble from the previous beer. I'd like to do one for this one as well. This was a beer that we worked really hard on because people last year were like, "Oh, that's really we like this beer, but these are the things that we don't like about it. So we went back to the drawing board to reformulate or to try to make this one a lot better. And what we found in doing that is that when you make these really big beers that are 11, 12, 13%, a lot of people say, oh, it's just a booze bomb, so the beer geeks like it because it's just an assault on your palate, so it's intense. But of course it is, but actually high gravity beers can have a ton of nuance, and they can also have a ton of finesse. And there's subtle things like the aroma and the mouthfeel and everything. This is kind of the glass that I've been drinking high res in. See this Schlitz glass? So I drank my high res in a 6-ounce little taster glass like this, and it's really great because I can crack one open and just kind of sip a few of them, and it's a beer that if you're trying to slam these after a hard day of work or whatever, it's not the right beer, but it's really a great beer, I think, for appreciating the intensity of hop flavors in beer. So, and actually, I sincerely believe that I like it better now than I did when it was fresh. When it was fresh, it was good, but I almost feel like the flavors have fused together now. I will admit that the aroma has died a little bit. It's not as robust now as it was, but the way that in which all the flavor and the bitterness comes together now is, I think, at its peak. So it's weird. This beer seems to me taste the best about a month after it's been packaged, which is weird because normally I like beers within a couple hours of packaged. But I really like the way this one has evolved. So going in reverse this time, Victoria, what are your thoughts on this beer?
I've been wanting to try high res for quite a while because you guys don't distribute it out here. So I was very happy to get a chance to try it. It's delicious. I love IPAs. Got all the hoppiness that you want and a little bit of sweetness from it too that I like. Adds some character, makes it a little bit different from your run-of-the-mill hop bomb.
Matt, what are you thinking? I mean, this is your second year trying it now?
It is, and I drank a considerable amount of it last year. So I say it's definitely crisper. It's definitely cleaner this year. The mosaic in the glass here really jumps out at you, and that hits your tongue first. But then I think the caramel malts in the big sweet malt bill there really delivers in the rest of the beer to you. And then the only time I catch the 10.5 is after it's all gone. I don't taste the booze right out of it like a big bourbon beer or a big 11% anything else, but I get a little bit of the alcohol on the in the aftertaste. I don't get a little bit of it; I get a lot of it, but it's there in a pleasant manner. It isn't hot. I wouldn't say it's hot. I would just say it's there.
Right on. And Jamie, did you have a chance to try it in 2014?
I did. Like Matt, I drank a ton of it as well. I definitely enjoyed it. I think this year's is even better. It really feels like you took all the qualities that were great about the beer last year, kept them, and kind of subtracted some of the things that did take away from the beer a little bit. Last year, as much as I loved it, the beer definitely was had a bit too much alcohol heat. I noticed it's a little, the ABV is a little lower this time around, but that slight decrease just changed everything. You really don't get that heat at all.
Interesting you mentioned that because when you brew a beer, when you go from 4 to 5%, basically has no effect on the yeast or minimal on the flavor. When you go from 6 to 7%, there's kind of a big jump there. And then when you go from you can go from 8 to 10 with sort of not really stressing the yeast a whole lot. But when you go from like 10 to 12, there's this threshold where the yeast starts to get really tired, and unless it has all of the right nutrients and everything it needs for healthy fermentation, it's going to produce kind of that hot flavor. And the only way to get rid of that is aging and maturation. And you know, that's one of the reasons why brewers really started using barrel aging too, is that the spirits industry has known this for a while. When you put really high proof liquids in barrels, the barrels just kind of take the edge off the burn. So like if you were to drink a lot of spirits without any barrel aging, they would be like swallowing fire, you know. But those barrels, they have a way of rounding the corners on it. So this is a non-barrel aged IPA, and the idea was, how can you get all that juicy hot flavor without getting that stinging? Two things that really kind of sting. The sort of what I call hop razor blades. It's like when you swallow sometimes just like really bitter beer, it like feels like it's slicing up your mouth with like razor blades, just like
you want to pull on the back of your tongue.
yeah, kind of like the Joker and Batman. You know, like it's like the crazy. Like you got to get that bitterness out of your mouth, and then there's the burn. Those are the two things that we wanted to get out of the beer, that searing heat. And last year, that was the #1 complaint about last year, is they said great beer, sweet, juicy, fruity, all that great stuff, but it had a burn to it. And you know, getting that down to where it is now and cleaning it up was a big objective.
I think by getting rid of the burn as well, I think you could actually taste and feel a lot more of that like clean, neutral bitterness this time around. In a, you know, it's very bitter, but in a very pleasant way. And last year, I remember sometimes the alcohol would kind of take over the hops role as the back end.
So I'd like to move on over to Gil. It looks like Amanda's quite the lapdog here.
She is such a nice. She's a lady.
Yeah.
She's an old lady. Yeah. She's a.
What'd she think about the high res this year versus last?
I don't know. They're both amazing to me. I mean, high res is like heaven on glass for me. I just think this beer is just solid as solid can be. I get the complexity is amazing. I mean, so much tropical taste to it, like mangoes and peaches and pineapples. Everything is on this beer. If you ever stop making it, I will come down and stone your brewery until you do it again. Because this is just, I just love this beer. It's one of my favorite IPAs. You know, there's amazing aroma. You could just spend the day just with your nose in the glass. Just such a good beer.
I mean, we may have to edit this video thing because I think we might be accused of recruiting fanboys at this point.
No, I wasn't. No, I
think you're being genuine. I'm just saying that it's just an honor to hear people.
You know, if you watch any of our shows, you know that we talk about high res even when you're not around, and this is just I think this beer is. I'm not gonna say your best beer because Three Beans is to me your art.
Resin.
Resin. No, I'm talking about Three Beans. It's my Sixpoint's best beer, you know, ever made. So this is a second best for me. That Sixpoint has ever made. It's just that sweetness, and I think that helped a little bit to avoid the burning that you had last year, which was not that big of a deal for me. I mean, it was there, but I think you did such an amazing job to get that away. I would never expect 11% of this. This drink's so nice, and again, just all that tropical fruitness to it is just amazing. I just love it. Yeah. I think you guys did an amazing job with high res.
Thank you. And I want to get Brent's opinion too. Did you have this on tap this year, or
Yeah, we did. Actually, someone corrected us on Twitter because we had the 11% on our menu.
Nice.
Someone sent us a message from the Sixpoint Twitter account. But as soon as I poured it, the first thing I noticed is just the color and the brightness. It's a beautiful beer, just to look at in the glass. But I really like the it's really clean bitterness, like someone said, and it actually didn't come across like overly bitter, but just tons of late edition hops, I would imagine. Sean, I don't know, or a lot of late edition hops, or
Yeah, I think actually they're pretty spread.
Yeah,
We have a nice big addition at the beginning, and then
yeah, it's there's a lot of hops that go into the beginning of it, and it's very bitter.
it doesn't come across though. It's real clean bitterness. So
Yeah, it's a very clean bitterness.
Yeah.
Because there's 1,000 pounds of grain in there too.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a
30. Yeah, but
yeah.
it's a big beer for us. We had more grain in it than any beer we ever did. I think it's 31,000 pounds of grain. Wow.
That's just for the 5-barrel. That's for the 5-barrel test batch, right?
Yeah, that was we crammed all that into a 5-gallon bucket.
Looks like Caro syrup.
Yeah, we actually use what's called grain extract now. And we don't even brew beer anymore. We just take grain extract and hop extract, mix it, and then reconstitute it with water, and there you go.
Comes in a can, right?
Yeah, actually it's pre-mixed, you're right, and then we shake it up in a paint mix shaker and dump it in.
Beer from concentrate. I mean, there's a market we're missing here.
You know, we've been thinking out for years, like, because we have cans now, and for the last few years, and people love them because they're very portable, and the sleek cans, right, are great for camping. And you know, a friend of ours sent us this photo. He wears cargo pants all the time, and he had all 4 of his pockets on the side of his cans completely filled with Sixpoint sleeks. Like it just looked awesome. It was like camouflage cargo pants with, and they're completely loaded up with beer. But the only thing missing was like a strap, like a bullet strap across his chest, which would have been cool. But we've been trying to think of how we could do like a instant beer. Like if you went camping and you didn't want to bring beer, and you brought like a powdered extract of beer that you could get, like let's say you got some fresh water from a mountain stream, or even if it wasn't fresh, you had a filtration system, right, to turn it into potable water. And then you took that water and you mixed it with like basically powdered beer, like instant beer, and reconstituted it. So then you could basically have like a week's supply of beer in a pouch, you know, like that big. And we were trying to think about how scientifically we could pull this off, because you need to have the alcohol and the fermentation in there. But
well,
if
didn't someone invent that powdered alcohol?
That exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. I mean, there's different ways you could do this. Maybe if you added grain alcohol to a powdered beer concentrate, mixed it with water, but then you still have to carbonate it. So there's a whole bunch of things, like you have to mix it evenly, carbonate it, and add the alcohol. So it's pretty complex, but it probably could be done if you got if we have a good team of scientists working on it. We could probably figure out a way. I think it'd be great.
Solving the world's problem.
You're going camping for 2 weeks, and all the beer that you need is in like one little pouch.
My son would love that.
Or just think of the application for astronauts.
There you go.
Totally.
Why would you bring Tang to outer space when you can bring beer?
First beer on the moon, yeah.
Yeah, no one's drank a beer on the moon yet.
Could do some dehydrated Apollo in a pack that they put in some water.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Yeah, go drive that $6 billion vehicle after a six-pack. Right.
Yeah, get drunk and drive that thing around, yeah. Man, are we close enough to the sun? I don't think we're close enough to the sun. Let's get in there a little closer.
I'm going to finish first I'm going to crack another high-res, but finish the hangout tonight on our anecdotal note that we talked about our favorite story regarding our beast. a beer story regarding our beast, or just a beast story. So my story involves Chinook, and Chinook, of the 3 dogs that I have, is the most. He comes off as being. People underestimate him. They think he's like a dopey kind of guy, but he's actually really clever, and I think he uses the fact that people underestimate him to his advantage. So one time in Brooklyn, I went to go get a pizza, and I came back. I ordered it to go. I went down the street a block away, picked up this pizza, came home, and I came back and I put the pizza out of the harm's way. It was up on a shelf, and I left the room and I went over to the other room to put on a record. And when I went to go put on the record, I heard this kind of a scratching sound, and didn't really think anything of it. But I came back in the room, and the pizza box the top of it was open, but the pizza box was still where it was on the counter. And Chinook had a slice of pizza, like, hanging out of the side of his mouth, and he was looking at me like he didn't know it was there, because like he ate it, but there was a piece of the cheese that had kind of still sticking there, and he tried to pull it off like I wasn't going to notice, and of course I noticed. The top flap of the pizza box had been pushed open. He stole a slice, and he ate all of it except for the evidence, which was dripping out of his mouth. And I'll never forget, because it represented such a great understanding that I have with animals. Like, I can't tell you how many times over the years I've been infuriated by, Chinook will do something outrageous. That's a pretty tame thing. Like, who cares about a slice of pizza? But Barley has done crazy stuff over the years. I've had cats that have run away out the window, and you have to chase around the streets of Brooklyn to get them back. And but you always realize that the best thing to me is that, like, the animals, they don't have any bad intentions, and that's why I think they teach you a lot about unconditional love, because people sometimes can do things to hurt you and mean it. But I've never felt like an animal, a pet that I've had, did anything to intentionally, hurt me or hurt someone else. And even when they snap at you, it's because I think they're confused, or they're misguided about something. So I think that actually teaches you a lot about humanity too. It teaches you a lot about unconditional love. Matt, do you have a good story to share?
I do, actually. My wife brought 2 shelter dogs into our marriage, and a million years ago, and she desperately wanted to get a 3rd dog. She thought, there's just 2 of us, we can handle 3 dogs. And I said, you gotta be crazy. We were living in an apartment at the time, and it just seemed like an overwhelming task. And I said, one of these days we'll have a big house with a fenced-in backyard, and we'll have room for the 3rd dog, and that's fine. A few years later, we bought the big house, and the backyard wasn't fenced in. She said nothing. I took a Monday off of work one day in the summer, and I laid in the 2 pieces of fence to close in the backyard. I went back to work on Tuesday, and Tuesday afternoon she sent me a text message and said, hey, meet me at the shelter. I said, what do you mean meet me at the shelter? She said, well, we have a fenced-in backyard. And I'm not kidding. We came home with Simone that afternoon. So she was laying and waiting. And and that was our 3rd dog, and I fought it pretty hard, just because, we were young and wanted to travel, and one more dog to put in the kennel when we needed to go away or have someone sit the dog. And then I gave in, and then immediately this dog became my dog. So I guess that's how it all works out. You don't pick the dogs; they pick you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Victoria, do you have a story to share?
Not about Cody, but about my first shelter rescue dog, Brody, who we lost a couple years ago. When we first got him, he was a stray that had been picked up, and we adopted him from the shelter, and he liked to run. If he could escape, he would run away, and he wasn't coming back until he was darn good and ready. And my youngest son was 2 years old. He got out of the backyard, opened up the gate. Either the kid opened up the gate or the dog opened up the gate. We don't know for sure. But Brody didn't leave my son. He stayed right with him. They wandered off down the street and got up around the corner, and we found them about 10 or 15 minutes later when I noticed that they weren't in the backyard anymore. But yeah, he stuck right by my youngest. So he was a good boy. I miss him.
Brent, what about you?
I have I guess it's kind of a funny story. It's not about our current dog, Phoebe. It's a dog I had years ago when I was a single guy, had a bunch of roommates, and we had a young dog. We had a homemade or handmade coffee table that a friend of ours had done. He was starting a carpenter business, and Presley was the dog, and he loved to chew the corners of that table when he was young. And we had read that if you put hot sauce or like peppers on it, you know, to deter the dog from chewing on it. We put like Tabasco sauce or something on that, and he went wild. He loved it. Like it was like way worse. But so putting Tabasco sauce and hot sauce doesn't always keep dogs off things. Sometimes they like the hot stuff.
That's pretty awesome. Gil, what about you?
Well, let's see. One thing I can remember about Amanda is like she had a Houdini moment. If you don't let her sleep on the bed with you, she'll cry until you let her in. But she had this breath that was like just unbearable. It was so bad, and she doesn't have a lot of her teeth anymore. So I call her out, put her out of the bedroom, turned around, closed the door, went to bed. About an hour later, that smell gets to me again, and I open my eyes, and she's laying right there in the bed, and the door's still closed. To this day, we have no idea how she got back to the bedroom. The theory is that somehow she walked behind me, and I didn't see her go back into the bedroom. But to this day, I don't know how she got back into the bedroom.
Well, she came in through the bedroom window.
I hope not. That would be scarier yet. I don't think she can climb the window, right, Amanda? But that's. I have a funnier story. When we were coming from Brazil to US, we brought our Yorkies, and they flew into the airplane with us, and the dog was on my pocket of my jacket. And as I walked in, the guy on the customs got so distracted by the dogs, he handed my wife and I a passport. And I'm walking in, and I open it, and I realized he never stamped our passports. He was so distracted. We almost got into the country without.
Could be a problem.
Without our I-94. That would be hard to explain later on. So.
I'll have to remember that the next time I try to go somewhere without a visa. I'll just bring my dog.
Bring a dog along.
Distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every drug smuggler watching right now is making notes. All right.
Look at this face. Look at this face. Jamie, what about you? What's your story?
Well, I think my story is just I'm surprised I now have 2 cats. All my life growing up, I've always had dogs. I was always a dog person. Never thought I liked cats. My girlfriend was like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna adopt a cat," and I was like, "No, don't adopt a cat. It's gonna scratch me, and it's gonna bite me, and all this. They have nails." And she adopted one anyway, and sure enough, that's exactly what he did. He scratched me, and he bit me, and I love him to death, and we hang out, and we drink beers, and smell hops.
Nice.
And now I have a second.
That's awesome. See, unconditional love. There you go.
I'm convinced that every dog on Earth,
Yeah.
every dog on Earth looks at a cat and says, "They let you do that inside? What the heck?"
Special treatment, man. Well, it's been a great hang. Thank you for joining the High Res Beast Mode double beer hang with Beast. So,
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, stay tuned. There will be more. We plan on doing more, and if any of you out there do your own, I know Matt and Gil have their own little thing going, but we're always welcome to, or we're always available if you give us enough advance notice. We love doing these things, so just let us know.
Well, thank
Cool.
you for you. Thank you for be so caring about animals and stuff. Like this is, just to add to the coolness of Sixpoint.
Right on.
For sure.
Peace, everyone. Later.
Peace.
Cheers.